In today's episode, I interview Roy Serafin. He's a wedding photographer and the CEO of Story and Community. He shared his journey from definitely being an accidental CEO, falling into photography from advertising, and eventually starting an SEO agency. We talked about the impact of SEO in photography business and the things that you can tailor and pay attention to really make good use of that strategy to grow your business. You talk about timeframes for seeing results and also the effort that will take for you as a photographer to evolve using those techniques. Roy travels a lot. So if you're somebody who travels a lot for your photography work too, he shares a few strategies for somebody who is moving all the time and how to work on your SEO for that. We also talked about maintenance of your website and the importance of properly using AI when it comes to your website copy. We had a really great conversation. There's lots of great tips there for you. I hope you enjoyed this one. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Accidental CEO podcast, where we bridge the gap between the creativity you love and the CEO mindset you need. I'm your host, Nada Salvatore, wedding photographer and business educator. Find full show notes and resources at accidentalceopod.com. Let's get into today's episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Accidental CEO podcast. I'm your host, Nada Salvatore, and today I have Roy Serafin with me. He is a wedding photographer and the CEO of Story and Community SEO agency. He helps a lot of photographers like myself and some other people to really learn the ins and outs of SEO, share a little bit of his experience as wedding photographer as well, and help educate the community out there. We've met a few years ago. What was it? Right before the pandemic? Right after the pandemic, maybe?
It was during,
right after.
I think. Yeah, somewhere. It was, I don't know.
Yep,
Those years are a blur.
Yes. It was right after the pandemic. We attended a workshop together. We've been part of a community of photographers out there together. So we kind of stayed in touch since then. And I'm glad to have him on a podcast today to share some tips with you guys.
Yeah, we even did a session, ironically, where I live now.
Yes, I found out when I went to look at some stuff on your website that I'm there.
You are, yeah, because I haven't worked here since, besides recent stuff.
Awesome. So just tell us a little bit more about what you do now, where you are, and we're going to backtrack into your full story after that.
Yeah, so I have been a wedding photographer for 8+ years at this point. Prior to that, I was actually in advertising. So I worked at agencies. I was the youngest art director in Chicago at 21. We worked for like Bose and McLaren, and Tabasco sauce for some reason is one that sticks out. So I did all that kind of stuff. And my job as an art director is to hire teams that come in. One of the people I would have to hire on a regular basis would be like photographers. And very quickly, if you don't know photography terms, you become very aware of it the second you start talking to a photographer, because that's all they talk about. I was hiring some sort of watch company I was working for. It might have been Motorola, but we had a company come in for lifestyle images, and the photographer and I were on a similar wavelength, but I didn't quite pick up what he was talking about. So the next day, I just showed up on set, basically, which was downtown Chicago, with a camera and started asking a billion questions and then kind of giving information back and forth. And then I got really addicted to that, which led me into doing travel photography, which led me into doing weddings, which led me into teaching photographers, which is now leading me to do SEO for wedding photographers specifically. The term accidental CEO makes perfect sense to me because I've never done anything on purpose, I think.
So tell me a little bit more about how did you end up in wedding photography with all that?
So at least in Chicago, the first few questions you get when you start taking photos, and I was doing it like I picked up the camera and then I would go shoot every day after I picked it up. I just had a good time with it. I would explore the city. I would be breaking into buildings to go take pictures of like abandoned warehouses, rooftops, all kinds of stuff that you definitely don't want your kids doing. But I was doing that, and then people in the office started asking me like, well, do you do, like, the question was either do you do weddings or do you do boudoir? And I didn't feel like I really belonged anywhere near boudoir. So I was like, oh, I could do a wedding. So I picked it up, and then the first one I did was free. The next few got better eventually, and then I did another free one, which was worse than the first one I did somehow. And then I I just started practicing and getting really, really addicted to it. So just, you get that reaction first from the first couple where you've nailed it, and then you're just, I got to do this. So I quit my advertising job and just dove headfirst into wedding photography, really without much of a plan.
Can you remember what made you realize that, well, probably need to look at this more as a business and invest a little bit of time really like thinking of this as a something I need to structure?
So the advertising agency works kind of like this. You would work, I mean, on regular, you'd be 16-hour days. So we actually had net pods, and there was also other things inside the agency that were like used to kind of like trick you into thinking you were working at a much nicer place, but you were really just working yourself to death. Like we had like an ice cream fountain. There'd be a beer company that would come in and just bring us free stuff all the time because we were making them lots of money. But the way a project works is like you'd be on this project for like a month, and then once you put like every amount of effort you could possibly put into it, you go into a room and there's a bunch of executives. Some of them are nice, some of them aren't so nice, and either you did a great job and you got a thumbs up, or you did a slightly okay job and then you got yelled at for 4 hours. The first wedding I did, where I did like a great job, the bride came back and she was in tears. And so, as a guy, I was like, okay, I definitely dropped the ball here. I maybe should stop doing this. But when she finally kind of came in, she was like, I never knew he looked at me that way when I wasn't paying attention. And I was like, oh, I should do this instead. This is much better than being yelled at by old men. And so I literally I quit my job and started doing that. I still did a little bit of graphic design on the side. And then that was kind of it.
What were the main transferable skills that you think you got that you were able to bring over from the advertising company to the wedding photography?
The funniest thing is they all come back no matter what I do. Like just they eventually start appearing in. So like I had built websites, I did advertising campaigns for social media ads. I talked about how to use time creatively. I built out sheets for companies to look at and make sure that the hourly billing was correct. So like every single thing kind of came back in, but I needed someone else to kind of teach me that that's what you're supposed to bring back in from the agency. I know it seems super obvious, but like just because you have the information doesn't mean you know how to necessarily apply the information. So it was quick. It was the thing I hated doing the most. I worked at one job for PetSmart, and PetSmart's really interesting. Their corporate center. There's two wings. So you have like a creative wing on the third floor, and then you have accounting and shipping. When they hired me as a contractor, they didn't have any extra desks in the creative wing. So I was in accounting and shipping all day, and for whatever reason, sometimes this happens with contracts. I was editing Word documents all day. Little did I know, a few years later, I was editing blogs for SEO purposes, and I just didn't realize that's what I was doing. And so, even though I basically quit that job because I hated doing it so much, when it became related to something I do love, like photography, it was just like, oh, this is super easy. I got this.
So, as a wedding photographer, you chose a very specific type of client that you like to work with. So, tell me a little bit more about who is that client and how did you get to understanding that that was your ideal client that you wanted to work with?
Lots of trial and error with different clients. I've done everything from I've done the couple who really couldn't afford anything, and then I've done the couple who like spent way more money than anyone should ever spend on anything ever. I've done the multi-million-dollar Chicago weddings or destination like I've been there. And what I learned is that there are traits of my ideal couples in both sides of that. So my couples are typically not, it's coming from like the lower budget side. Like they don't want to spend a bunch of money on decorations or things that are just like temporary, but they will totally throw so much money into experiences or once in a lifetime things. Or I have couples now where we'll pick a week and I will go travel with them to do like a country tour. And so like that comes from just understanding that there is somebody who will spend a lot of money without going overboard, but will also spend on things that they'll actually be able to remember. And so learning that, then learning what works best with my personality. I'm super laid back when I work, like almost to a fault. Like I'm very aware of what's going on, but my job is to reduce the stress as much as possible. So I found couples who are very sarcastic and kind of fun and laid back and excited to be there, but also mostly about being in that moment. Those are the couples I like, and that's just years of meeting ones I didn't.
Okay. How do you tailor the message on your website to really connect with those clients?
There's an interesting balance. So you have SEO, which requires you to take like a certain keyword and fit it in a number of times, and then there's going to be related words. So like if you're a wedding photographer in the city, it could be the venues that are in the city, it could be a landmark that's nearby, it could be engagement sessions, whatever. You need to fit those in. But then as you're writing, you need to realize you're writing to a specific person. If you write too wide, you're writing to everybody and not everybody wants to work with you. I do not work with like really, really well type A people who are like every detail matters, every tiny little, like we had our bar napkins monogrammed. We need you to capture that. I'm instead going to be looking for the moments. So as I'm like writing out these things, I'm starting to think like, what would attract this person? Like maybe we talk about, the feeling of a moment, or we talk about fun things that they can bring into their wedding, or like what are their main concerns. So it's like, feeling judged or uncomfortable in front of the camera, or kind of having to find a stranger from another country to kind of just meet them at their wedding venue, and then they meet them for the first time. They're like, they don't like that kind of thing. They need the relationship and the comfort to know like, oh, okay, this person's they're gonna do what I need them to do, and I don't have to think about it. So it's taking those things together and going, okay, what's the balance? How do I do this? And how do I end up not doing things I don't want to do? Which would be like, there's certain types of weddings you just don't want to accidentally bring in by being too luxury or too laid back.
Yeah, definitely a specific kind of client that you would need to figure it out who it is and then learn how to speak to them, because there is a certain language and a certain feel and things that are important to them that you need to figure it out in order to be able to communicate and connect. What inspired you to really start this SEO agency after establishing yourself as a wedding photographer and then taking another pivot and let's do this other thing here?
Yeah, I'm really big into learning constantly. I go to workshops all the time. You'll see me at conferences and events. Even when I'm teaching at those conferences, I will go take classes while I'm there to at least try and pick something up. And so several of the workshops that I've been to have taught me to kind of dig deeper and try and give out to more people. And what I realize is that I have this skill that a lot of people don't have, because SEO it's a very boring thing to be good at. It's a lot of research, and to me, I might feel excited because I'm playing puzzles and trying to deduce what people are typing in, and that's a whole thing. But there's a lot of photographers that don't understand that, have the work, and then aren't just able to figure that out. So first, I tried to teach them, and I did a great job as far as the class goes. But then it's not just giving the information; it's then the people actually doing what you just told them to do. Even if they have the exact recipe down, they just don't do it, or they'll do it once and then it's kind of it. And I was like, okay, this isn't going to work, because I'm going to start getting people that are mad because they're not getting any results out of this. Yes, it's because they're not doing the work, but that's not, people don't work that way. They think, oh, I learned from you, so because it didn't work because I didn't put the effort in, it's your fault. No. So I got to a point where I was just like, what happens if I just do this for other people? Like, what if I just, okay, I know this photographer, I know what they want to do. I can roughly figure out a similar ish style of their writing. And I can also take into account where they want to work. I can just ask them the questions, write it out, adjust it for Google, and then watch their site grow. And I did it for a few people. They liked it. I had a good time. My team had a good time. And I just like, now I'm just kind of repeating the process over and over again, to the point where we're even building websites now, which is not my favorite thing to do, but I'm good at it.
Yeah, yeah. How many people you have on your team now?
So we just transitioned. We had one longtime writer. They want to go do something else, which is totally understandable. It's a very repeatable task as a writer. Which venues in this area? Oh, okay, we're going to do this 100 times a year.
Yeah, yeah.
It gets boring. So I got a new team now of 2 new writers, third one that I'm working on training, and then I have a few other assistants that kind of just like pop in here and there, as well as stuff we outsource, which is a lot of like design work, or stuff that just like I can manage better than I can just do in my own time, because I'm a very slow designer at this point.
Would you say you're a multi-passionate person? Does that term, it's something you identify with?
No, I would say for me, so I have ADHD, and what I found the best works for me is to find little like trails of dopamine, and then I kind of just switch back and forth on them as I'm kind of working on. I found is like transitioning between two things works a lot better, so I don't get distracted or bored or burnt out really easily, because I will work almost 24/7 to the detriment of most people that know me.
Yeah, I hear you. Tell me a little bit about how the background with SEO kind of impact your wedding photography business, especially in terms of like your client acquisition and your online visibility. Obviously, it's probably something that benefits you. Tell us more about on the practical side of things.
Yeah, I think my love for SEO comes from this. It's like, you post something on Instagram or on Facebook or whatever, whatever platform happens to be working at the time. It's probably TikTok. I don't know. The point is that you post something on there, and it's only good for like a certain amount of time, unless someone happens to find it at some other point in time, which is really, really unlikely. But SEO kind of takes that on its head and goes, what is this person who's getting married, who's going to be going through the same questions that every other person has went through, going to be asking? And how do I become the first person to answer those questions? And what that allows me to do as a business is go, okay, I'm going to write that content, and I might get a booking from this week, or I might get one from like 6 months from now. But the important thing is that once that thing is ranking and it's sitting there, it might need a couple of adjustments. But I've had blog posts that I've written. I mean, I wrote a Vegas one for elopements. That was like, I wrote it on the plane when I was flying somewhere. It was a few years ago. It's brought me in at least 20 or 30 leads at this point. It's makes me money. So again, you multiply I call them like rain buckets basically. It's just like I want as many rain buckets as I can have to collect as much water clients as I can. And so I'm having to work a lot less now in my business than I was before. And it's cool because people are finding it. They read the information, they see my work, and they go, "Oh yeah, no, this guy, I want this guy," because I've already solved the problem. So it's a little colder sale than sometimes what like a social media sale feels like, but it is someone who already knows, like, oh, I've already gotten value from this person, and I only had to do it. I mean, I don't. I have some blog posts that are like a year plus old, and I really haven't touched them. Same thing with the homepage. You know, if you're not me and you're not moving every 12 months, your homepage can bring you leads for a long time.
How long do you feel like people should expect to see results from optimizing their website from an SEO standpoint? So let's say, I will really work on everything that I needed. I did everything that I'm supposed to do. What does that time frame look like for me to start seeing some results?
Well, first, how long did you do those things? Did you do them for a month? Did you do it for a week? Did you do it for a year? What? Give me.
So, well, that's probably part of what people need to understand too. So, is SEO something that, let's say, I can sit down and I worked on everything that I need to work on my website for the whole week? I optimized my pictures. I, used my keywords. I did everything I needed to do. I'm done with everything. Followed all these. So, let's say I'm one of those people that actually do all the work when you give me all the instructions. Imagine that, and then how long would I have to wait to start seeing some results? Because I think people don't understand this part of the concept, and I want to make sure that we paint a good picture for them.
You could accidentally kind of fall upwards to where like you did that week of work and you only put in that little effort, and maybe you wrote it about something that has absolutely no competition. It's not something that people are thinking of, the other photographers specifically, where you'd be competing, and so you may have accidentally tripped onto page one. It can happen. It's very unlikely that's going to happen because ranking something is not just the content on the page, it's also backlinks, which is another website linking to your website. It gives you a little bit of trust. And then it's just a constant effort. You know, Google does look for updates. The more you update that site, the better off you're going to be ranking wise, because Google's going to say, "Oh, this is a great source. I'm going to keep going back to the source because it seems like it's helpful for the readers. You know, I'm getting good feedback from it." So in your example, where you're only doing it for a week, it might work for a little bit. Again, you can stumble upon things like that, but that's not the thing. It's like I dieted for a week. How come I didn't lose 700 pounds? Like, well, I mean, you didn't do it. You didn't do the work. You did it for a little bit. So I like to say roughly a year. Now you can see results happen before then, but the longer something has to sit on Google, the more likely it is to rank, unless you're not making adjustments to it. And obviously, within a year, if you're writing one article a week, let's say, that's 52 posts in a year. That's a lot of content. It's a lot of content for Google to say, okay, not only does this person have what we call topical authority, where I know they've written about a plethora of the subjects, but they also have stuff that is being used by other users that does seem helpful. So I'm gonna start promoting that content. And you might see something where like your traffic just spikes, but depends on how much work you put in.
So SEO is not a one and done deal. That's what you're
No,
telling me.
but year over year, you work less hard. I'm not working nearly as hard on my own website as I did probably 2 or 3 years ago, because I don't need to. It's already got the respect, basically.
Hey, wedding photographers and event planners. Say goodbye to time chaos with Timeline Pro. Our app turns your workflow into a breeze, letting you create and customize stunning wedding day timelines in minutes. Share them with clients and vendors for instant feedback, all within the app. No more endless emails and coordinating headaches. With our easy-to-use templates, shot list tracker, and sunset timings, your planning becomes as joyful as the events you're crafting. Dive into a stress-free planning experience and make every wedding a masterpiece. Download Timeline Pro now and transform the way you plan weddings and events. For more, visit timelineproapp.com. So there is a bulk amount of work that probably needs to be done to a website, and then there's maintenance work that needs to come into place. And when we talk about that updating maintenance kind of work, what are we talking about? Are we talking about putting out new content all the time, or we're talking about changing the content on the main pages of a website? What does that really mean?
So search is always going to be about how do I best serve this person's intent of searching? Like, why did they type this in and what are the answers that they're looking for? So it's partially going to be making sure that whatever content you do have is actually answering that thoroughly. So like think about like engagement locations, right? What are some things that I might need to know? I might need to know one, where it is, two, if it has a permit or fee, what times it's available, if it's good for rain or not. Like that's something that a lot of people, myself included, have missed several times, just not writing that indoor location thing. I mean, we live in Florida, it rains at least once a day. It's going to be a task where you're looking through your content and really going like, okay, there's one result on Google that's ranking first. Maybe you don't have as many backlinks as there, but is your content better? If your content's not better, you're never going to get better in that spot. The rest of it's going to be looking at like what I call your basics. So when I move to a city, I need to know which venues I recommend. I need to know where I'm going to recommend for engagement photos. And that means I'm going to not only have to go see those venues, do a tour, take photos, give them to the lady who's giving you the tour, because most likely, or gentleman, whatever, you're most likely getting on their list from doing that because they get free photos. And also you're just showing that you do care about the place. But I'm also going to go show like a photo from me looks like at the locations that I'm going to be recommending. And I can give you firsthand knowledge. Then you start working about vendors. Like who are you recommending for officiating? Who are you recommending for dress shops or any of these other places? And even as a guy, like I should be recommending some sort of dress shop, obviously based on the reviews from either clients or Google or just some source. Because I don't know. I don't really honestly know what happens once
You're
you go
not
in
into
there.
dresses?
I don't try on a lot of wedding dresses. No, it's usually frowned upon. I've never seen a bride go, you know what, I wish you would do? I wish you would try on my dress first just to make sure it fits you. But no, no. So, it's kind of building those things. And then are there smaller niches of those? With wedding venues, do you like industrial wedding venues? Are you willing to travel a little bit further? It's like there's a million things you could answer. You could even do date nights. That's a good thing for couples. Couples want to come to you as a resource. What do you want to do for a date night? As a guy, I can tell you, I don't like to think of date nights off the top of my head because they're usually bad off the top of my head. But if you give me a list, I can pick one.
I have a list, by the way, on my website. You can check it
I've
out
already
when you
seen
take
it.
your girl out.
We're close now.
What are some unique challenges that photographers face when they're optimizing their website and their content, and that your agency really helps them address?
Most of the time, photographers have this problem. We have like mines and mines and mines, basically, of just like every piece of information you would need from a photographic standpoint, right? Like I have pictures of venues, I've got pictures of locations, I got pictures of places I want on vacation, I have examples of like dress shots, all these other things. And a lot of it's just like you have this massive amount of information that you don't know where to put in first. And so getting the keyword research done for your entire area is one of those things where like it's pretty tedious, to be honest. It's also just which way do I start? And so what we do a lot for photographers is I'll run through and I'll find every keyword I can find for the area based on the type of weddings you do, based on the type of client you're looking for. And then we kind of look to see what terms are available that you could reasonably rank for. So just kind of keep in mind, like if something is on the difficulty scale of like a 50 plus, and your site's brand new and you've never posted anything before, you're not going to rank for that 50 plus thing, at least not for a while. That said, if I can find something in that like 0 to maybe like 10 range, you could probably rank for those things. So it's figuring out what the order of hierarchy of these articles are going to be, and then seeing what needs to actually be on these pages. That's the number one problem we see people looking at. It's like, oh, I could write anything, but I don't know what to write. I don't know where to start. I don't know where to go. And then we have website platforms. Some platforms are great. Most of the ones that people recommend are shitty. Just that's the best way to put it. Show It, for example, I'm just going to call them out. They're charging you for things that WordPress gives you for free. That extra blogging package, that's a scam. 100% that is a scam. That is something that is already included in your WordPress thing. Now, it is nice. I will say I like their builder as far as like visually designing something and getting something really unique feeling. But also their code's kind of sloppy, and so it doesn't really run very quickly. And Google goes, okay, well, my users on average, if it's longer than 2 seconds to load a page, I'm not sending them there. You have the same problem with like Wix or Squarespace. Like those sites are also bad because the code is typically bad, and you really don't have much you can do about the code either. With a WordPress site or even a custom built site, I can typically go back in and say like, okay, well, this asset's too big. Let me just resize this down. This is loading really weird. Let me try a different version of it. But with a Squarespace, Wix, Show It, you're not in charge of how those things are being presented. So if you want to get a faster speed, you can't. Now that doesn't mean you can't rank that content. It just means it's harder. And I always like to start people running without lead feet.
So you travel a lot for the wedding photography. How do you have to account for that when you're working on SEO on your own business or, for other clients that you have that do a lot of traveling?
Traveling kind of complicates a lot of different things. One is that I will often be trying to rank something for a city that I really don't have any standing in as far as the website goes. So we're hoping that the photography knowledge kind of lends itself to that. But it does work. It also changes how you travel. Like when I just did a destination wedding in Belize, and one of the things we did was we looked up and said, okay, these are the things that people want to see when they're here. These are things that we need to get photographs of so we can go back to Belize. So the idea is, anytime I do a wedding, at this point, if it's a destination I haven't been to, I can't just go for the wedding and be done. I really need to make it a full business expense, which is fun, but also like a lot of stress is to go. I need to go do all the things that are on this list to make sure that I have a photo of it, I can explain it, and I can actually be a local guide. It makes you a better photographer, admittedly, though, because now, like, anytime someone says, "Oh, I want to go to, I don't know, Spain," I know what to look for in that country that'll be good for photographs, and then also how to look to make sure that like it's legal to photograph in that place. The back end of it is kind of a pain. You get back home, you got to organize all your photos, and then you got to write content for each place. And it might be what to do, it might be places to get married, it might be do you need permits? Like, there's a million things you could write with that content. It's good though. It's a lot of work, and if you want to make it work, it's you're just gonna have to accept the fact that you're gonna have to make a lot of content because you kind of have to build that authority with each location.
Let's talk about AI a little bit.
Let's do it.
So, a lot of people have been using that to help with website copy. What are your thoughts on that? What are the consequences of that? What are the benefits of that?
I don't think there's anything adversely wrong because like a lot of photographers are also not great writers, and that's perfectly fine. It happens. So I think like if you're using AI to enhance what you actually think, like if you're like giving it bullet points and saying, can you give me back this paragraph in a easy to read format that, maybe, I don't know, has kind of a casual vibe or whatever. I think that's fine to give you that information back, but you have to understand the structure of what it is you're trying to write. You can't just let AI pick for you. So like if I'm writing up, let's say like something on my homepage and it's like why I became a wedding photographer in whatever your location is, you're gonna want to hit three locations in that local area. You're gonna want to talk about them. You want a restaurant, you probably want a wedding venue, you probably want an area to go see. You want those local landmarks being referenced in that document. You need to understand that's what you're trying to get AI to do. Because if you just tell it to write a paragraph about why you became a wedding photographer in a city, it's going to give you three long paragraphs that have nothing to do with it. And I think that's an important part to consider too, is that AI writing is really obvious. For me, for example, the one that I always catch is lush greenery. In my life, I have never described something as lush greenery. That's just not the way I think.
Delve?
Delve or amongst, I think is one of them.
Yeah.
What's the other one? There's so many that you just kind of see and you go, okay, if you're just going to have it write it for you and you're not going to do the effort to turn it into something real or genuine, you're not giving any good content. It's like faking your photographs. It's not good. So AI can be good and it can also create a lot of crap.
Right?
Also can be really
Only as
inaccurate.
good as the input.
Exactly. Oh, and also you have to understand you're talking to a robot essentially. So you still have to give it the information and then double check whatever it gives you back because I'm telling you, it will give you it. Recently, we were testing a new prompt and talked about this the glass factory over in Jacksonville.
Yep.
Yeah, it said it
Mhm.
was pirate themed. I was like, it's not. It's a warehouse. It's a really industrial warehouse. I don't think pirates have ever been there. Probably.
I think you should publish that. That would help me to
Outrank me.
not have to compete with you for weddings up
I
here.
always
So
tell
you should definitely
photographers,
publish that one.
you should never worry about me competing because most likely I will send the couples to people I know anyway.
100% publish that one.
Yeah, we're only doing I so as a whole on my wedding photography business, I only do up to 20 weddings, and typically it's more like 15. Never really big competition. I just big traffic eater.
We're good. There's plenty of couples around here. It's
Yeah,
not just you and me. There's plenty of other
it's
photographers too.
actually this in the entire Jacksonville, Florida, St. Augustine area. That's just me and you now. That's it.
True, true.
Yeah.
I
We're
mean,
the only good ones.
was there ever anybody else? Come on.
I have no idea. I'm new here.
Where do you see the future of SEO heading? Anything that you know it's coming or people should be paying attention in the industry?
Yeah, there's actually some pretty big concerns depending on how you type in like search. So Google's got this new thing that answers. I don't know if you've been typing on Google lately or Googled something, and it comes up with an AI answer. Now, there are good things that come from that. One is that it does reference sources, but also what happens is someone typically gets their answer from that and they don't actually have to, go to the page to see it. The nice thing is if you're focusing on things where people have to see photographs of something or that's what they're specifically looking for, Google's not going to be the best place to get an answer. That AI thing may not affect you quite as much. But it does mean you need to kind of keep an eye out for questions that you might be trying to answer that AI obviously can answer. And then look at the format of whatever comes up from that AI and maybe write something similar. What that eventually is going to do is that people are going to not go to your website nearly as much. Or they might start typing in things like whatever the question is and then the word Reddit. So maybe also joining in a Reddit and adding in some sort of response is also another way to kind of hope you show up there. AI is going to be, I mean, it's just in the last few years, it's changed so many different things in different ways. There's so many different programs now. I mean, I personally prefer Claude.ai instead of ChatGPT. But that program didn't even exist at the time when ChatGPT first came out. So it's an ever changing landscape, and I think that SEO is always going to be there. It's the only way that Google makes money. It's the vast majority of where their business comes from, and the more AI takes over, the less clicks they get to their ads, which in turn makes them less money. So it's eventually going
Mhm.
to correct itself. But I do see it being at least a temporary problem for now, and there's still going to be some changes that come in.
Yeah, I'm interested to see if they can figure out how to make money from that.
How to make money from
Just using the AI responses, because like you said, they do get their money from ads and clicking on people's websites. So
Well, interestingly, if I remember right, I have this in the slides somewhere, I'm sure, but an AI search result for Google actually costs them significantly more. So if they were to serve every single search in AI, it would cost them, again, this is based off of a very vague memory of a stat that I have in there, but I believe 3 times as much, if not more, just to serve everything in AI because it costs more computing data basically to do that.
yeah,
So good
interesting.
for that. Good for us.
Yeah, good for us. What advice would you give to other creatives trying to look to diversify their career, maybe similar to how you expanded from photography into SEO?
Don't do it. It's very confusing.
Stop it now.
Just stay home. It's fine. Just take a nap. No, it's try not to do too many things at once. What I've noticed is that even myself, I'm very tempted to try all kinds of new things. When I was doing wedding photography plus coaching plus I built a course that sold very well, and then I also had to manage the questions that came back from that, and then I also started an SEO agency. What I noticed is that I can only give 100%, no matter what those like inspirational posters that say like, oh, give 110% say. I can only give so much. So if you're feeling like burnt out and you're starting to notice like the diminishing returns on your stuff, maybe your photos are getting worse because you're also offering photo and video, or maybe your videos are getting worse because you're trying to do two things at once, or you're doing that plus you're like coaching or teaching. The less effort you can put into something, the worse that result's going to be, and it may not be worth it in the end. You might want to just focus on like one or two or maybe even three things at like absolute max, hoping that at least one of those is primarily outsourced or done in a way that you still have time to think and be a human being, because you also need downtime. Like, don't ignore the downtime. It's not free space to
Nap
put more
time.
things. Yeah, nap time is good too.
Perfect. Roy, tell everybody where they can find you if they want to work with you and start ranking better.
Yeah, so we got a website, storyandcommunity.com. You also have my photography website, roythephotographer.com. But I would say if you want to get direct answers from me, I have a group on Facebook. It's Story and Community. If you ask a question in there, either I'm going to respond directly or the community is going to help you, or I'm going to make a video out of your question because it's a good one. So please join that group, come hang out. We can also do game playing calls if you need those.
Perfect. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today and sharing some good strategies for everybody that can use to improve their SEO. In general, this is not only for photographers, all of you out there that have a business, that should have a website, should be looking into these strategies. So thank you very much.
100%, no problem.
Awesome. We'll see you guys next week for another episode of the Accidental CEO podcast. Bye. And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Accidental CEO podcast. Thanks for hanging out with us in the world where creativity and business strategy collide. I am Nada Salvatore, thrilled to have shared this time with you. Remember, every episode is a step closer to mastering the art of being an accidental CEO. So don't miss out. Hit subscribe, drop us a sweet review, and spread the word to your creative tribe. Your next big breakthrough could be just one episode away. Join us next time for more insights, laughs, and actionable tips. Keep pushing boundaries, dreaming big, and embracing the beautiful chaos of entrepreneurship. Here's to make magic happen in your business and beyond.